So yeah, if you haven't been before, I channel the seventh dimensional Pleiadian consciousness. He comes through to me in the form of a being called Christos. And when I first started channeling him, he kind of seemed like a singular entity. But then as I was able to go with the expansion of the energy, I became aware that he was able to represent a collective consciousness. So the frequency that he is in, he can tune into the collective and have his own individualized perspective. So I'll have my eyes shut. I move out the way and let them come through. It takes a couple of minutes usually for them to be here, and he'll announce when they are. Marie's going to just begin by starting off with a couple of questions, and then when he answers a question, it's very definite. He just stops talking when that point's finished. And so if you have something you want to come in with, then just come in with the next question. I can't see you because I have my eyes shut, so just speak clearly for me. And there we go. Does anyone have any questions or anything before we start? No? Cool. All right. Hello, I'm Christos. I'm representing the seventh dimensional Pleiadian consciousness. It was a privilege to be here with you today to help you gain deeper insight and understanding of the human experience, the energies which surround you, of the power that you carry within you, understanding how your vibration affects your reality. If you wish to begin, we are ready with your questions.
Thank you for joining us, Christos. This is one about crop circles. Can you explain their purpose?
They were a form of communication created by energy. They were not done in a physical sense as you maybe perceive a craft or a being coming and moving the corn. Rather, they were an energetic representation of consciousness in order to communicate higher frequencies, in order to embed your planet with higher frequencies, in order to help the ascension process, which was beginning way back. But the awareness of this ascension process became more prominent within the last 20 or 30 years, when you started to notice more of this activity. Less of the crop circles now are formed from galactic consciousness. Some of them are appearing from the consciousness that is created by humans themselves. As you become more awake and aware, even those of you who do not know it yet, you are tuning into higher frequencies. It is like the effect of molecules of water when they are played beautiful music. They can form coherent and beautiful patterns, as is the same as consciousness is directed from humans, and with some connection with the galactic counterparts that you each have, you are able to form these patterns with energy many of you without knowing it. There are some, as you may be wondering, which are artificial and which have been produced. But the desire to do this still carries some potency in itself, although the energy is not so charged in these ones. They are often aligned with places where there have been crop circles previously, and they do still carry some significance and message. As for humans, you spread your curiosity amongst you, and it opens up your hearts and your minds to the possibility and perception that there is more than just your physical body.
Thank you. At the beginning of this year, on our time, astrologers were predicting turmoil around July, and they were correct. How will the turmoil, lead to raising vibration? The world seems to be regressing into warlike mentality, violence, greed.
This is much of the chaos that is necessary as you collectively release the density from many millennia of trauma, of violence, of living from a lack mentality, which causes these behaviours and also causes the mentality of greed. You are going through this ascension process, and the heavier energies that you have all gathered between you are being released throughout humankind, and as well as the chaos that is often released when we do our individual shadow work. When it's on a collective level, this can be exacerbated, and therefore you experience more turmoil, more difficulty and more trouble when you view it from a boots on the ground perspective, when you view it from a very human perspective, when you view it from an egoic perspective. But when you understand that much of these events are occurring in order for you to release that density, to release that trauma, you're being called to do so. Once you recognise this, then it allows you to step into higher frequencies and move towards the path of ascension.
Does anyone else have anything? Anyone want to ask anything or?
I've got a question.
There you go.
Are any of the Pleiades on Earth right now?
Yes,
In England?
all over the country, all over your planet.
In this room?
There are many children who are incarnating from Pleiades. They've come from much higher frequencies, and they are moving into human bodies, which is why, not in all cases, there are various causes, but why you're seeing some children struggle with their perceived personalities, with things that may be seen to be holding them back, but this, for many of them, is as their body is adapting to such a high frequency coming through. They don't quite know how to communicate some of the understandings that they have yet. Although you may see with some of these children, as they progress throughout their lifetimes, some of these things that seem symptomatic will begin to drop away as their body aligns with the frequency better. There are others who are much, much older in human terms, who are incarnated from Pleiades. There are many of you who are Pleiadian starseeds, and then there are some who have chosen to take a physical form and are very, very aware that they are from Pleiades as well as other star systems. This is also helping many of you to tune in and be able to converse with and receive messages from Pleiades and other star systems, because you have these beings here who carry this frequency, who are able to create a resonance that means that many of you can be awakened to receiving the consciousness from Pleiades. So it is as though when you are a human, if you're around someone who is very, very negative, then often you will start to feel drained by that negative energy. Same as if you're around someone who is very positive, you can be uplifted by their energy. Same as if you're around someone who is carrying a frequency from Pleiades, you can start to resonate with the frequency there, and actually start to learn to apply that, if you choose to, through deep meditations, or some of you may try automatic writing. There are all different ways that you can start to learn to facilitate that, but you will be able to tune into this consciousness as well, especially if you're being exposed to individuals who carry this frequency. And many of you have incarnations who work with you as your soul team from these other parts of the cosmos, and they are able to deliver that frequency to you. You just have to be aware and to ask them. They will not come and intervene with you if you have not asked them to do so.
Thank you.
Why now have there been an increasingly noticeable amount of spaceships visiting Earth?
There is some manipulation going on here from some of your perceived powers. They have understood certain technologies and are trying to demonstrate a display in order that you may be more reactive and against the possibility of intervention, and more receptive to their guidance or their perceived wisdom on how to deal with such events. Then there are other craft from the cosmos, from the galactics, who are paying close attention to these imposters, you might call them, keeping an eye on the activity and noticing whether it's affecting much of the vibration of humans. And there isn't much fear surrounding these craft. There is some wonder and some curiosity, but they are not deeply concerned that it's affecting the vibration of humans, because many of you are so ready for awakening. You are so ready for what you call disclosure. They are so ready for lifting their own frequency so that they can be receptive to these beings should they come amongst you. Although there will not be direct show of a physical body from the galactics generally. It is agreed that this will happen only when human consciousness is ready to ask for this collectively, and if it is necessary. We are aware that sometimes in our physical form, if we choose a physical form, and those that are fully incarnated in physical form may seem a little alarming to some of you, so we won't just pop in and give you a fright, but you are able to perceive that these consciousness is here, and there are elements to some of the humans on your planet who would wish for you to not be able to connect with this energy. So you may experience and see craft. Some will be human-made craft, and some of them will be from the galactics, but they will not come and terrify you.
Thank you.
Are you able to intervene if the other, like whether it's our government or lower life forms, kind of want to control us?
Only when you collectively ask for it, or when it is going to cause harm to other parts of the universe. So yes, we will protect ourselves if it is a threat to our own planetary system, which there have been many humans who have noticed the neutralization of nuclear missiles before. That comes from various parts of the galactic. But no, we will not come on Earth and intervene until your consciousness asks for it. But at the moment, you are so rapidly raising in vibration and frequency, even if to many of you it doesn't feel like it, and you feel frustrated with the fact that you notice that other people aren't awake to you, or they don't seem to be tuned into you, but at soul level they're starting to integrate those frequencies too, so it's only a matter of time. And so as you collectively lift in frequency, you will either choose to ask for help should it become necessary, or what we see as being the most likely option is, as you rise, as you all begin to lift your own vibrations and create a resonance which lifts the vibrations of others, this will start to become unnecessary anyway, because those who wish to control you will lose a huge amount of their grip and their power. So as they try to hold on, they constantly reveal themselves and their strategies to many of you, which just causes further awakening. It is inevitable that humans and the planet is going to rise in frequency at this time, which is why you are seeing so many grips of control. But the resonance and the balance that you have with the universe and the cosmos is, you're coming into a state of much more balance, much more peace, much more harmony, and this is allowing more abundance and beautiful, joyful life experiences to come once many of you have stripped away the density. The quickest way that you can help to aid this process is by learning to strip away your own density, learning to do your own individual shadow work. You lift your own frequency, and then you lift the frequency of all those around you. If you try to help people while you're feeling low, or while you are struggling with your own life and your own experience, whether it's material experience or spiritual experience, if you don't bring that into balance yourself, you cannot help others to lift their frequency, because you're doing so from a place of lack. So once you learn to lift your own vibration and move into states of creation and start to realize that you're a powerful creative being, and that everything that you think, say and do for yourself is in fact helping not only you but others, then you begin to lift the frequency on this planet collectively.
What are your thoughts on AI?
This is something that can be used for benevolence, and it can also be misused. There are AI systems throughout the galaxy, throughout the universe. There are some star systems that aren't even in this galaxy where they have very, very advanced AI, but it is used in ways in some star systems where it's benevolent, in others where it's less so. And that will be the same for the human experience. And all we can say is that you have a choice in how you choose to use and integrate this. It's being forced upon you. We can understand that, and many of you feel very, very resistant to it. But there are ways that it will help to enrich your life and take away some of the slavery sides of your existence, the things that feel arduous and the things that feel like chores to you, so that you can live in more joy and freedom. The way that the AI is used at the moment, you're in quite a crucial point where that could pivot in either way. But again, this goes back to the rising of frequency amongst humans and amongst the planet, that as your vibration lifts, it makes it harder for anything to be done to you in a way that impacts you negatively. Also, we would like you to understand the very depth, the very extent to which you actually have control over your human experience. This is something that is difficult for many humans to perceive, and an understanding which has not been brought forward until fairly recent times. And that is that you are part of the creative source energy, and because you are part of that creative source energy, you are able to have much more control over your human experience than you have been conditioned to believe that you have. There are powers that you have within you, not just powers like telekinesis or telepathy, but the power to create and transform through your perception. Reality is a projection of your consciousness. This is being discovered amongst your scientific community, but this is not anything new. This is not anything that hasn't been brought through from spiritual texts and understandings before. Of course, in many times it has been manipulated and misused. But as creator beings, you have the infinite potential to raise vibration, to change the whole the whole experience that you have as a human, by beginning with the small things, beginning with your observation, beginning with what you believe is possible, and by understanding the ability that you have, each and individual one of you, to tune in to higher sources, to tune into the galactics, to tune into consciousness in higher frequencies, because you will all have soul counterparts in those higher frequencies, because you all incarnated from that same pure source point of energy to begin with, and then subdivided in order that you could all have experiences and teach each other collectively. So once you learn to remember that you have that knowledge deep within you, that you have that connection deep within you, you become your own superhero. You need no heroes. You are the hero of your own story.
Where do we go once our human experience is completed?
The perception of human experience is a tricky one, because for humans you perceive your experience in a very linear fashion. So you see your past lives, your future lives, and yourself possibly in other dimensions if you've learnt to perceive that yet. Essentially, your energy can go back into source energy, and it will do so all of those incarnations will, although you may have seen yourself die in a previous life, it is as though all the experiences are layered on top of each other, and all of the incarnations will end at the same time and return to source energy. Often after a period of integration, and often there is part of the ego that is left on the planet, which is what you experience as haunting, or as communicating with the spirit of those that have passed over. And we will just explain this a little more sometimes when you see a medium or experience a loved one after they have passed on. You feel very connected because you can feel that part of their personality, but that is usually the egoic side, with some of the love and compassion that comes through the human experience too, but it's like an imprint of the energy, and therefore we advise that you don't take too much advice from those that have passed on, because it is still a connection to their human experience, so they still have a very human perspective, although they may have an integrated moment where they have a slightly heightened state of awareness. So if you're looking for guidance, then seek that from your own soul team and from different frequencies that can advise you. But the human experience, once it is over, it collects together and moves into source energy, and quite often will come out and repeat the experience. You won't necessarily come back into a different incarnation, but it's like it will throw all of the different parts of your source energy that incarnated in all the different lives and all the different lifetimes, and repeat the cycle again. But this time you may have a choice where you live, for example, a more destined life. You follow your callings, whereas before you may have lived a very fated life where you felt that life was happening to you. You were not a creative part of it. You didn't live the opportunities that you might have had. So depending on the frequency that you choose to reincarnate back into, and you have that choice, you will have a very different experience of the human experience as it was previously to you. And this is why some of your past life memories will feel like they are the same, like the life was the same. You may see ones where you were in ancient Egypt, or where you were in ancient Greece, or something that seems terribly exotic, but you may just see some that seem incredibly mundane, because it was actually the same experience. It's just you took different paths and different courses, and that is what feels like going into cross dimensions can be for some of you. So your human experience never really ends. It's quite cyclical, but the resting part of source, you do have almost a moment to pause, but most parts of energy will choose to reincarnate again. The reason that they choose to do this is because every single incarnation that there is expands in awareness. It brings through higher understanding, higher knowledge, and it feeds through either telepathic communication, through emotional energy. There are very different ways in which this happens depending on the frequency and the dimension into which you have incarnated, but each experience of individualized energy feeds energy back to the universe and creates the expansion of the universe, and therefore the expansion of consciousness, and therefore the expansion of every single being that has incarnated from that source point.
What tools and processes do Pleiades use to become enlightened or to move closer towards enlightenment?
Oh, we're terribly enlightened. We connect more easily with the consciousness of beings in the highest frequencies in the 12th, and we can remember our source energy much more easily. So we have less reason as we begin incarnation to move away from that understanding of, as you call it, divinity, from the understanding of our inner knowledge and our inner power. We do here have the choice to take a slightly denser form and to also merge back into a collective consciousness, but we are for a lot of the time in physical form, but it is not such a dense body as you have as humans. So there are aspects that we learn from this. We do not have the same sensations that you do through touch and emotional connection. We don't have the same triggers from chemical reactions within the body. The body is more a way of experiencing form, and once you go much above the 8th and into the 9th dimension, you won't really experience that with Pleiades. It's only us more lowly beings that have the option to take that form on a more regular basis, and that helps us to understand and to connect with you as humans, as we are more able to empathize with the restrictions that you experience in having a physical form, but we do not actually reap so many of the benefits as you do as human, because we do not have such physical sensations of touch and the emotional triggers that you have, which sometimes may feel very, very difficult to you and something that holds you back, but they empower you because they allow you to expand and to grow. If you didn't have your emotional responses, you would become more stuck in just living in a more survival mode. So it is the development of emotions that has allowed humans to be able to tune into their energy, to feed energy back into the universe, and to learn how to go up the ascension process. We do want to move up in certain senses from where we are in 7th dimension, but we do that through choosing to tuning into a higher collective consciousness. But as we say, it's more our choice to have some physical form. We are more aware that when we incarnated, we chose to be in a dimension where we could experience more physical form. And just like you have us to guide you, you also have 12th dimensional beings to guide you too. It's just sometimes they take longer for you to tune into and to be aware of, because they're very high frequency, and your body and your perception needs to adapt in order to do that. Whereas for us, it's no different to you tuning into us as us tuning into that consciousness.
Thank you.
Why is it Pleiadians who predominantly channel to us rather than other civilizations?
It's not. It's that many of you are able to perceive Pleiades at the moment. So, as we have explained, you have many points of incarnation. You have members of your soul team across various dimensions and various frequencies. Pleiades is maybe a little easier for you to tune into, so you're more aware of it, but there are many who are channeling Lyrans, the Arcturians, Andromeda. They're the ones that you tend to hear as the kind of buzzwords, the more popular, the more trendy ET races, and that's because those consciousnesses are more accessible to you. So there is much channeling at the moment, but through each human timeline, you tune into different beings according to which different frequencies you can assimilate. and that's why that you're experiencing a lot of Pleiades at the moment. If you go back to the time of ancient Egypt, when there were beings who, prior to the formation of the ancient Egyptian civilization, there were beings that had come in a very physical form to have incarnation on the planet. Their imprint from being here, and then those who chose to keep entering the reincarnation cycle as humans, was closer to that time, which is why the ancient Egyptians were able to perceive many different gods or goddesses or other consciousnesses, as maybe you're starting to understand why they were able to perceive so many of those and learn from their wisdom, because humans still experience things in a very, very linear way. So when something feels recent for you, you are often able to tune into it more easily when it's having an effect on your planet. But then the frequency of the planet changed a lot after the times of the early dynastic periods of ancient Egypt. There was great transition, and that made it a lot harder to make those connections, which is why there were religious structures implemented in order to try and to reconnect with those frequencies that were being lost.
Thank you. So, sort of to follow on, who or what is Lyra?
Lyra is an expended star system that was lost a long, long way back, billions of years in your human timeline. Many of the beings from that star system that were in physical form chose to leave, and then incarnated. Some traveled to other planets, and then some that did not make it to travel, they incarnated into other planetary systems where they could take on a form that was in a similar frequency and vibration. So there are many Lyrans in the Pleiades, because our frequencies are not that dissimilar. And there were other planets too, more water-based planets, and they chose to have incarnations in Orion because there was more that facilitated that for them. And these beings then moved their physical form to these different places, and those that didn't manage to move, or those that were in much lighter frequency, were able to connect and transfer their consciousness into other star systems. They would have transferred their consciousness also into the human system, and that is one of the consciousnesses that was picked up in early ancient Egypt, as well as other places in the ancient world. But you have gone through a period where you've moved very much away from being able to connect to that consciousness, although recently the frequency has changed enough so that you can start to integrate the Lyran consciousness again. So there's a lot of channeling of light language of Lyran consciousness, because it's easier to receive information from a much higher frequency through that form until your body starts to get used to the differences of becoming a channel and adapting to the different frequencies. But Lyra is really quite a strong, prominent energy, and a very empowering energy, which is quite essential for you humans at this time.
Do you, the Pleiadians and the other entities, communicate? Have you got your own world like we do here on Earth as races?
Do you mean within Pleiadians within the system of Pleiades, or Pleiadians with other star systems?
Other star systems.
Yes, we communicate, but more telepathically. And again, the level to which we can communicate with other star systems is similar to how we communicate with you. We can do this very much telepathically, but connecting with star systems that seem far away, the denser our form is in Pleiades, the harder it is to connect with something that is further away. We do experience those restrictions like you do as humans. When you can't completely perceive something, or you can't tune into its energy easily, it's harder to know that it's there. we don't struggle with this anywhere near as much as you do in human form, but those that are in 12th dimension in Pleiades are able to make communication with much further reaches of the universe, but then we're able to understand more knowledge from their consciousness and bring that through into the lower dimensions. So it's like you have a kind of passing on effect of information, although it's much clearer than when humans pass on information to each other and cause terrible chaos and confusion.
Where I was going with that question is the Galactic Federation. Do you work together?
Yes.
That's what we've took.
Yes, the Galactic Federation has members of it from all different frequencies. So it is not just very high frequency beings in the Galactic Federation. They allow beings that are in lower frequencies, some of them that you may perceive as being rather frightful, but they are part of the Federation too, usually the ones that actually, although they may seem more frightful because their frequency is lower, so you can't resonate with them, you can't recognize them, you can't reconcile yourselves with them very easily, but they are part of the Federation too, in order that there is deeper understanding of the lower vibrations as well as understanding of the higher vibrations, but there is a much more concentrated high vibrational energetic state of incarnation and state of entity in the Galactic Federation. They wouldn't allow too many of the lower frequencies in there because that could cause some problems. So there tends to be very high frequency beings in the Federation. There are members from various different dimensions, and there are members of your human race who are in the Galactic Federation. They communicate with them. Then just because they're not up there on a ship with them, although some humans are able to move up to physical spaces and share that space with the Galactic Federation, and then they are part of that and able to bring messages back to humans. But for the most part, it is high frequency beings that are able to travel easily and to cope with the different movements and the different portals of energy that you have to be able to integrate into your body or your light form through space in order to not be harmed by that experience. So those that are in lower frequency, usually they have a physical form somewhere else and are able to move there when they are called to do so. But the Federation is a very telepathic organization, so it has members throughout all different star systems throughout this galaxy, and expands a little further into the universe too, to the closer galaxies, in order to do what is possible without being dominant or too much intervention, in order to prevent harm to the universe and prevent the restriction of growth, the restriction of expansion to other beings and other entities and energies throughout the universe.
How do the humans who are part of the Galactic Federation communicate information back to the rest of humanity?
Through travel of the astral body or remote viewing. So they are able to go into altered states and allow their bodies to move to those places. Many of them will have had these experiences as children before it was in their control. And this would have been nurtured, in most cases done very gently, just as an introduction to get their perception open enough that they will be able to do that. So they may have experienced a lot of psychic capability as children. Some will only remember it as that. Some will remember experiences where they actually have gone and travelled and experienced the Federation. The energies and the formation of the Federation is very understanding of the beings that are in lower frequencies that cannot just suddenly be immersed into something, and that you need this gentle integration a lot of the time as humans. But yes, so they move from their physical form in a state where they are usually not conscious. Some learn to do this consciously and learn to facilitate that travel for themselves. It begins quite often unconsciously until the person learns to do that. There are some humans who just throughout their sleep are going and working with the Federation, and then they come back and don't remember their dreams because they've been feeding information to the Federation.
Do Pleiades have pets?
We don't have pets, we have interactions with different creatures. There are different creatures here, but our communication with them is very, very different. They are not separated as your animals are on your planet in the same way. We don't need, in the 7th dimension, we don't need animals for sustenance. Our bodies don't form in the same way. It's more like a choice to take on a physical form rather than a necessity. And so that is the same with our pets. We can, for the creatures that surround us, we can choose to have interactions with them, but we do not have ownership over them. And they do not choose to communicate just with one particular human or one particular group of humans. So they're part of the collective consciousness, and able to have individual experiences really just as the human form is. It's just a different way of experiencing a body.
Can you explain Stonehenge?
Stonehenge, like the pyramids of Egypt, and like many of the ancient structures, although it was created by human hands, with Stonehenge, less so with the pyramids, there is more intervention from higher sources there. There was a knowledge and an understanding of sound and how sound could be used to manipulate the forces that you understand as being scientifically proven forces on your planet. So the understanding, it was almost as though, because at the time where those structures were built, the perception of the forces that govern this planet was very different. Therefore, there wasn't the same restrictions and limitations in what one was able to do with the various elements and materials that were on the planet in order to change their position and to move them. So sound was used as a way of creating an energy that could create a more weightlessness to it. This was understood by beings that influenced the building of the henge, and they communicated certain methods to the creators of that site, and the site was created for various reasons to do with the alignments of astrology and astronomy, but also to be a centre that generated energy. There is a frequency from Stonehenge. There is a frequency that comes out from the stones. You knock them hard enough, but you're not able to hear it because it's inaudible to the human ear. There's a frequency that comes from there, the same as with the pyramids, like the sound that was used to create them. And this has an effect of uplifting the consciousness of the area. That's why you see many of the crop circles appear in these areas, because there is a certain resonance created from that site. Of course, you experience crop circles in other areas too, but that's usually other areas that also have strong channels of energy through them. It's just that at the henge it is marked out for you to see. So as well as having the effect of creating a sound that is able to help aid the ascension and awakening process of humans, it's also as a physical reminder of your connection to the galactics and to the power that you actually have when you change your perception of the physical laws of your planet.
If Pleiadians take the choice to become physical form or not, what is your life cycle like where you are? Do you ascend or incarnate, or do you have the choice to?
So when our incarnation is over, we are individually connected to all other incarnations, just as humans are. So it's essentially the same process. Once the cycle is over, all of the incarnations are collected in together to return to source, to choose then how to go back into the cycle in order to expand the knowledge and the awareness and the understanding of the human experience further. So really it's no different to the end of the human experience. So if you're talking about the frequencies where there is no physical form, it's still the same thing as the cycle for all of the various incarnations. Say there are 600 incarnations for any one being. They will all get gathered in together at the end and go to source and choose to reincarnate. And it's only because of your perception of linear time with humans that this makes this very difficult to understand, because you think, hang on, that incarnation finished then, this incarnation finished then, but they are all running concurrently. It's just the perception of time that makes this seem complicated. So our perceived years to you may be 700 years to your 50, but this is only your perceived human timeline in terms of incarnating from a source energy and dividing to have experiences. This all happens at the same time, so all together and then all back out. Do you require further clarity?
No, that's great, thank you.
You're welcome.
How do you suggest we can better access our dream states?
As you learn to access dream states when you're waking, as in through meditation, or there are various practices that you can use, and this is very individualized for humans because you've all come in with different understandings of the human experience, with different conditioning from your families, with different conditioning from your friends and your social structures. For beings that have incarnated, for example, in certain parts of India, like Rishikesh, where there is very, very deep spiritual understanding, their way of accessing different states will be very, very different to someone who has grown up in a very Western civilization. But essentially, the dream states become clearer and more accessible to you the further you develop your spiritual understanding and lift your frequency. And you'll also find that your dreams are greatly affected by this, because as you release anxiety, as your vibration lifts, there is more of a use of your dream states in terms of communication than when the human brain and the human mind is trying to process stressful experiences, and that's when you have dreams that seem stressful or anxious or difficult. So the higher your vibration goes, the more benevolent your dreams seem to be, but also the more informative they are to you, and the more they play out in lifting your frequency during your wakeful hours. So by practicing the smallest thing that you can as a spiritual practice, if you need to begin with, you will begin to change your frequency, and then your dreams will serve you in a very different way, because they become not so much about processing the human experience as about becoming more connected. If you are really not able to access any memory from your dreams, it could be because you're in communication with higher beings and that is not suitable for you at the moment. The communication that you're having is not suitable for you to process in your human experience. It may be stressful or seem frightening to you because it is so different. And you may find that you are able to access those memories of your dreams the more that you develop spiritually. But we would say that understanding the importance of bringing higher vibration to your wakeful hours has a huge effect on every other part of your human experience, including your dreams and how you are able to use them and how you are able to learn from them and grow from them as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How many people on Earth about are channelers, and what beings other than Pleiadians are they channeling with?
This depends on what your perception of a channeler is. There are many different forms of channelers. There are artists, musicians, writers. Some tune into higher frequencies, some purely channel their own egoic part of their nature. If is the question relating to higher frequencies channeling in such a way that Jessica was doing?
As much as I can interpret.
There are still relatively small numbers who are actively channeling, who are actively aware of it, but much larger numbers who are doing it in an unconscious way. So they're tuning into these higher frequencies and developing understanding that seems very philosophized, seems very deep and possibly uplifting. Usually if they're tuning into higher frequencies, there will be a vibration about it that feels uplifting rather than possibly channeling a more egoic consciousness, or a consciousness that is much more related to the more humanistic parts of the incarnation, which can sometimes have a more negative or downbeat tone to them. So the exact number of channelers is so subjective to what you perceive as channeling to be. In terms of consciously aware of channeling, it's probably only around 10% of you that are able to do this consciously and to bring through this information, possibly 8. It depends on the places that you are and the societies that you're growing up in. There are parts of your world where this practice has become much more known about, and therefore there have been more who have started to learn how to do that, and those communities will have a higher percentage, but it's still fairly low at the moment. We are asking and encouraging as much as you can for as many of you to start to learn how to do this process, and it isn't difficult. You just need to be ready in terms of vibration and frequency. So once you lift your own vibration, once you change your frequency to be able to be receptive to this, you'll find that the channeling will come through to you. And we ask you to do this because the more of you who can be a voice piece for galactic and higher consciousness, the faster your ascension process is going to be, and the faster you create a high resonance which will affect all of the humans that are around you, which will in then turn have a ripple effect and uplift the consciousness of humanity and get you to where many of you wish to be faster.
Is there anything you would like to share with us to give us some further information about how you live on your planet? Something that we maybe haven't asked yet?
In terms of our experience of physical form, it's so wildly different to yours that we realise that for many of you it seems a little perplexing. For example, we don't need to use the same measures for reproduction as humans do. We are able to birth through a consciousness. There is still, if a being has chosen to take a physical form, there is still a birthing process. But it is formed from the consciousness of the beings that wish to create it. And that can be 1 being, 2 beings, 5 beings. it's not the same physical process that's needed amongst humans, and we create often new life to create new consciousness, because we understand that the more consciousness there is, the faster we are able to give information to the universe and to expand consciousness. This is different, of course, to incarnating in a human form, because what many of you struggle with as humans is that you are born without remembering. You're born without remembering your source nature, your divine spark, and therefore you have to go through these turbulent experiences, emotional experiences on the human path, in order to be able to remember that divine spark, that nature, that part of you that is source energy, that part of you that is connected to every other incarnation and every other being. Although we do say that each incarnation, each expression of source energy forms many incarnations along the different dimensions and the different timelines, every single one of those is able to connect to every single other individualized incarnation, every other consciousness. But again, this is nothing that gets forgotten how to do. So where we are, we incarnate with the understanding of that knowledge. For some of us, we still have to go through a process of learning how to use it better, of learning how to connect with it. For some, much like with human experience, for some it is easier than for others. But whereas you go through these journeys very much alone at times as humans, where we are, our consciousness is collective. We can choose to have an individual consciousness or choose to work collectively. So we are much more supported in our ability to help each other, to use and learn from those connections, and to be aware of them all the time. This is a direction that you are moving in on your planet. It's not going to be a long time in the human story. For most of you, within your living memory, within your human life, you're going to start experiencing very high levels of communication through telepathy. And this is going to really deepen the understanding of your true nature, of your inner power, which is actually outer power. It's something that can be expressed. As you go through the next 50 or so years, many of you will connect with this on a level that will seem quite unimaginable to you at the moment. It is similar to the progression of technologies on your planet. It's only in living memory, it may be a generation back, a horse and cart was still used to deliver fruit and vegetables. Yet now you have technologies that have superseded or possibly worried many of your expectations. And this is going to be how it will seem for many of you in years to come, as your expansion of your telepathic communication, of your understanding of your collective nature, and your ability to create with thought quickly and easily grows in such a short time. And this is going to change the trajectory of the human story. It does require a certain amount of understanding how you are connected collectively. That is not to take out your individual human experience. Those experiences are important. You need an individual self, because as humans, your emotions are one of the most powerful ways that you connect with other energies and that you feed back information into the universe. It's a very selfless thing to have human incarnation, because it is difficult because of this. But you will also have more of a collective understanding. So when someone needs help or support, they will not need it in such a physical sense. The collective consciousness will be able to bring an uplift to that person through frequency and vibration, rather than through needing to do physical things in the same way. Your future as humans is a very, very exciting one, and one that many members of the galactic community are eagerly awaiting to see this progression. We see you in your states of fear with the events that go on your planet, and that is why it's so important to us when we are able to connect with you and to let you know that this fear, these chaotic times, they're necessary, because you're releasing your density. You're releasing the things that have held you down for many years. And we know, we see, because there is no time in our perception, how your consciousness is rising so fast. And we wish to reassure you from this that the place you're going to will be joyful to you beyond your expectations of what is possible at this point in your story. Have you further questions?
No. Thank you, Keistos, for your time.
It's been a pleasure to connect with you, and we hope that we have reached some of you on frequency and understanding, and that you are able to connect with this energy and take it forward throughout your incarnation, throughout your human experience, and move forward knowing that you are powerful and that you can have everything in your human experience when you learn to redevelop your connection. Thank you.